Good morning, YouTubers and God's owners. I'm going to make a series of videos, or maybe just one, I'm not sure. I just did a series on the Zeitgeist movie, which I found very profound and very much in an impact on the seeking Christian's mind who comes across it. So I shared a few thoughts with that last time around, and in my searches on the internet last night I came across something called zeitgeist, moving forward, which is basically the next continuation that this movie maker has created. And the thing is long. It's like 2 hours something plus long. It's basically it's very, very revealing about the maker of the movie and his design and his direction that he wants to take you and your mind. First off, the guy's very super extremely talented movie maker. He uses imagery, humor, and music and everything as a craft, which is a form of witchcraft in our time. Not to say that everybody who uses those things are practicing witchcraft, but it's the tools of witches. Now, what is a witch? I covered that in my beliefs in some earlier videos. It's basically someone who inserts a notion into your mind without you knowing it. That's the language of witches. Now, witches have been practicing this. I mean, we all practice it to some degree. Like that's what poor mouthing is. When you're at your uncle's house and he's a rich uncle, and all you seem to be able to talk about on your visit at your rich uncle's house is how you're having trouble paying your bills, and you've been blindsided by this bill and that bill. You just don't have enough money sometimes to get by. Really what you're saying is, Uncle, can I have some money? But we use other words to bring the uncle's mind to that outcome. That's the language of witches. Now, in the first movie, the Zeitgeist movie, it was very important for this guy to destruct what Jesus had built, to attack Jesus. And I realized during that first movie that he really wasn't busting the balls of Buddha or Muhammad or just about any other, but he was very much set on discrediting and disproving the words of Christ and the life of Christ quite well and quite efficiently, as I recall. And I talked in the other movies how humor was a channel. That's why he used bits and pieces from George Carlin's comedy routine to deface Christianity and Christ, because nothing opens the door like humor other than sex and music. But humor is like really a powerful tool. So anyway, he did a bang-up job of shaking people out of the Christ tree. And on his second movie, which is the guy really reveals his goal. Now that he's got these minds and people shaking off of the Christ idea, he now inserts his replacement for Christ. And he opens up the movie with this old guy. He's like 95 years old, this old guy. And I've seen this guy in videos since I've been on the internet. His name escapes me, but he's a scientist and a designer, and he designs futuristic cities and a new world. Now, once the Zeitgeist guy gets his movie established, and he convinces you how corrupt our government is, and convinces you how bad the system is, he does a curious thing. He says, now, let's say if we started out with a new world. Then he does a picture on the screen of the old world versus the new, and he says, if we're going to design it as a new functional state, let's start with. And then the rest of the movie is him basically giving the idea for the world that he believes how it should be. And then you realize that the maker of the Zeitgeist movie was very much a follower of the old guy that's 95 years old, the old designer who designed new worlds and new cities. Now, I wish I could remember the old guy's name. You probably know who I'm talking about. If you watch the movie, you'll recognize the old man when you see him. So the rest of the movie is basically giving the old guy's belief validity, which is very much what we call today a new wave age movement. And he spends the rest of the movie trying to convince you that your life, your existence sucks, and their life, their new existence, is like the greatest thing since jarred jelly. They just can't get into your head enough how bad and sad you are. So I doubt the guy that made this movie will ever watch this video, but if he should ever, I'd like to say a word to you, Mr. Zeitgeist movie maker. What you are trying to do is convince people that they have no choice. And if you go back and look at one of the movies, you got this idea of people not owning so much stuff, but using so much stuff and returning stuff when they're done using it, so we can cut down on pollution and waste of manufacturing and waste of things. In other words, if you say I had a motorcycle, as today you can have a motorcycle, and in that state that you want to push on society, you'll just go to the motorcycle store, borrow the motorcycle, and then when you're done with the motorcycle, return the motorcycle. Now that sounds nice in theory. Most communism does sound nice in theory. That's how it gets started. That's how it gains its power. It really does sound fair, and it really does sound nice. And in your system of people using items and not so much as owning items, it will kind of guarantee us of one social standard. There'll be no higher standard compared to the lower standard. But I remind you, sir, that no matter how good you can make this system, or a communist, any communist system, and the guy is professing communist, because he comes to a part in this video, I'm sure if you watch it you'll see it, where when he finally brings up the communist part of his beliefs, he does a little comedy routine where people stand up in an audience and they're in silhouette in front of the screen, and they start shaking their fists and screaming, "You dirty communist!" And then the announcer says that the announcer falls out dead or something, and they show you, the announcer of the movie, falling out with his feet sticking up behind his desk. It was very funny, because what you did is you defused, because the moment, the instant the people said, "Hell, this guy's communist," and the thought came to him, you defused it with humor. And once you had them laughing at their own thought of thinking, "Hey, this guy's a communist," then the thought can now be dismissed, and which is a form of witchcraft too. And you very much did that for a reason, because you knew the instant that you mentioned the communist beliefs and outlooks that people's minds were going to automatically go there in an act of self-preservation, to self-preservate this country's beliefs and understandings, laws, constitution, which guarantees us the right to own that motorcycle we was talking about, or go rent it if we want. In your system, we won't have the choice or the right to own that motorcycle. We'll only have the choice to go rent it and return it. And I'm using motorcycle as a it covers all of it, okay? Because he's talking about this pretty much everything, even cars. And if you don't need it, you can't own it. So, but I ask you to think about this for a minute. In this system that you run down so much and do so well doing, at least in this system that Christianity has built, you have the choice. You talk immensely about the banks all owning your money, and the banks are in control of your money, and we all want to point out who these powers that be are. But I remind you, as all of you, you don't have to keep your money in a damn bank. You can go to that bank and draw your money out, and you can stick it in a pickle jar and bury it if you'd like. Oh, well, you still can't control how much the dollar's worth, and they do. Okay, well, go draw your damn money out the bank, and instead of sticking it in a pickle jar, go buy you a damn bar of gold with it. They can't change gold's value, can they? And if they can change gold's value, hell, go buy you a gun or a four-wheeler or a truck, or hell, how about a storehouse of food? You still have those options in this system, which is why inevitably this old broken down beat up system that you people are crying to be relieved from is still so much better than any system you can come up with today. Sure, the banks are the B system. They own us. They own countries. They own the world. But guess what? You still have the right to remove yourself from the B system in the B system that we have today. In your system, where there's no monetary, there's no this, there's no way, there's no ownership, there's no way to remove anything. Somebody else is holding all the shit that you're going to need if the world should ever go to chaos, which you said yourself, it is definitely heading toward chaos. At least now you have the right to mass the things you need to survive on in hard times. It's up to you. You still have freedom of choice. You still have free will. And in the system that you want to implement in your video, you don't have these systems. So I ask you, what are you better with? At least in this system, if your intelligence rises to a point where you can figure out what's going on, you can always remove yourself from it. And in the system that you're presenting to us, there's no removing yourself from it. You're just integrated into this great giant circular city that all cities are built alike. They all have a power hub, they all have an entertainment hub, they all have a living quarter hub. It's like this big huge circle within circles. Within that system, you're very much just locked in within that system. And you pretty much have to be who the creators determine. Well, I got to tell you, friend, I like my old creators a whole lot better, because at least in that system, it's up to me whether I'm on the bottom or if I'm on the top. You see, if I wanted to, I could become one of those bankers. If I wanted to, I could become one of those peasants that's building the bankers. If I wanted to, I could become any one of millions of positions in between the top to the bottom. In your system, there's no such thing. So there go, you delineate freedom of choice, freedom of who and what you want to be. So to the Christians out there, I'll say this, that are seeking these types of things and watching these zeitgeist type movies, think about that. Sure, the Illuminatis and the bankers, they run the world. Who gives a shit? Your world is what you make it. At least they have afforded you enough leeway where you can determine your own life. You don't like where you are now, drag your ass up and you can go live in the mountains somewhere and you can escape all the city hustle and bustle, the banks, everything. You have that right. In a system like the zeitgeist movement wants to talk you into being such a great system, there is no choice. You're in that city and that's how it's going to be, and you're going to own what they say you can own, and that's it. There's a reason we stomped the shit out of a bunch of communists back through the 30s on up to the 50s. There's a very good reason. Because it does not work. Now let's take I think I'm going to have to end this movie. And then I'm going to start video 2 because it's getting kind of long. And then we're going to talk about man's nature, which the maker of the movie Zeitgeist gives a whole hell of a lot, way too much credit for the nature of man. So, okay, God's owners and YouTubers, I'm going to end this video and check out part 2. Adios.